Number 46, this is algebra, rates, and proportions. Diana is baking bread, and the original recipe calls for 1 1/2 teaspoons of yeast and 2 1/2 cups of flour. Diana will use the entire contents of a packet that contains 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast and will use the same ratio of ingredients called for in the original recipe. How many cups of flour will Diana use? What we want to do is set up a proportion. We'll have teaspoons of yeast in the numerator and cups of flour in the denominator. Same thing for this one over here. All we need to do is place each number in the appropriate spot. This is 1 1/2 teaspoons, makes 2 1/2 cups of flour. So if she uses 2 1/4 teaspoon of yeast, then how many cups of flour does she need to use? So you have this set up. Now all we have to do is cross multiply. That's 1 1/2 times x equals 2 1/2 times 2 1/4. Now what you can do here is change these into decimals. So that would be 1.5x equals 2.5 times 2.25. Then we bring the 1.5 over. That's really 25 over 15, or 5/3, times 2.25. It's pretty easy to calculate. That's 3.75, or 3 3/4. The answer is J. Number 47, this is algebra. We're working with polynomials, polynomial division. For all non-zero values of x, 12x to the 6th minus 9x squared over 3x squared equals. Let's write it out. Now what we can do from here is separate them into two terms. That's 12x to the 6th over 3x squared minus 9x squared over 3x squared. So the denominator goes to both places. I'm just separating the numerator into two terms. And here we're just going to reduce. The 12 and 3 reduce to 4 and 1. The 9 and 3 reduce to 3 and 1. The x squareds here cancel out, so it's going to be minus 3. We only have two answer choices with minus 3, B and E. The rest of them are wrong. What is the difference between B and E? The only difference is this one is x cubed and this one is x to the 4th. Here we have x to the 6th and x squared. That's x to the 6th over x squared. That's x to the 6th minus 2, which is x to the 4th. Another way to look at it is to see that there are 6 x's on top. There are 2 on the bottom. These cancel out, and what we have left is x to the 4th. So the answer here is E. Number 48, this is number and quantity. We are multiplying matrices. 4 matrices are given below, W, X, Y, and Z. Which of the following matrix products is undefined? Matrix products. Each matrix is described by two numbers, the number of rows and the number of columns. For instance, W is a 2 by 2 matrix because there are 2 rows and there are 2 columns. X is also a 2 by 2. Y is a 2 by 3, and Z is a 3 by 2. So this is a 3 by 2, 2 by 3, 2 by 2, and a 2 by 2. The only way that we can multiply matrices is when the column of the first matrix is the same number as the row of the second matrix. So we have a row and a column of the first matrix. We have the second matrix, row and column, and these two numbers have to be the same. We're going to have to test all of these options, but what I'm going to do is start with the bottom one, K, X, Z. X is a 2 by 2, Z is a 3 by 2. These numbers are not the same. That means this is our answer. Remember, with a lot of these, when you have to do process of elimination and check each and every answer, usually the one at the very end is the answer. Sometimes it's the second to last one, but my advice is to go straight to the bottom one and check that one first. Number 49, this is algebra. We're being tested on parabolas and their characteristics. The 3 parabolas graphed in the standard xy coordinate plane below are from a family of parabolas. A general equation that defines this family of parabolas contains the variable n in addition to x and y. For one of the parabolas shown, n equals 1, for another, n equals 2, and for the third, n equals 3. Which of the following could be a general equation that defines this family of parabolas for all n is greater than or equal to 1? Notice first that all the answer choices are in vertex form. That is y equals a x minus h squared plus k. This is vertex form. In this case, the h is 0 because the x value here for all of these parabolas is 0. It's not shifting left or right. It's only shifting up. And so we know that the k, which is our vertical shift, has to be plus 1 because that y-intercept is at 1. That means this will not be our answer. All the other ones have a plus 1. So we can say that the equation really is a x squared plus 1. Now, what is this a? In this case, these are our n's. We know that if it's positive, the parabola is upward facing. If a is negative, if it's less than 0, then it's downward facing. Or it could be downward facing over here. So we know that a has to be positive, which means it's not d or e because these numbers are negative. So the difference between a and b is n and 1 over n. The question is, what happens to a parabola as this number increases above 1? How do we know whether a parabola is getting narrower or wider like this? The way that I like to remember it is if that number is getting bigger, that means it's getting further away from 0. Now, if that number is approaching 0, if it's like 1/2 or then 1/4, 1/8, if it's getting smaller, not negative, because negative, remember, is going to make it upside down. But if that number is approaching 0, it's getting wider. And the distance between the parabola and the x-axis is getting smaller. Thus, here, if we look at it, as n increases, it's getting further away from the y or the x-axis. And so it's this situation and not this one. This number is getting bigger, not smaller. The answer is A. Number 50, this is statistics and probability. We're dealing with counting. We can use a Venn diagram. After polling a class of 20 music students by a show of hands, you find that 8 students play the guitar and 9 students play the piano. Given that information, what is the minimum number of students in this music class who play both the guitar and the piano? Now we can try to understand this by drawing a Venn diagram. These are the kids that play guitar. These are the kids that play piano. And they've already told us that 8 kids play the guitar and 9 kids play the piano. Now, where these numbers can go, for instance, there can be a number of students who play just the guitar. There will be a number of students who play just the piano. And then there will be a number of students who play both, A, B, and C. Now, what these numbers are is going to depend on how many kids there are in total. The number of kids there are in total is 20. Well, if you notice, 20 is more than the sum of both of these. So even if you had 8 kids who played the guitar and 9 kids who played the piano and none of them played either, so that middle number there or that intersecting number is 0, you still have less than 20 students. That means this here is a possibility, meaning there are 8 kids who play the guitar, there are 9 other kids who play the piano, and then there are 3 other kids who play some other instrument. So what is the minimum number of students that have to play both the guitar and the piano? 0. We don't need any of them to play both of them. We can have 8 guitarists and 9 pianists and no overlap between the two because we have 20 students in total. Thanks for watching. For all the latest videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also find us at justiceprep.com or you can like us on Facebook and Instagram.